Here's a number that should get your attention. By the time a man turns 60, there's a better than 50-50 chance his prostate is already enlarged. By 80, it's 9 out of 10. And most men have no idea until the symptoms hit. 4 specific foods, backed by clinical trials, have been shown to measurably improve the markers that matter: PSA levels, inflammation, and cancer risk. Today, we go deep on all 4. Welcome to Second Prime, where science meets your second chapter. Today's episode is for every man over 50 who wants to be proactive, not reactive, about prostate health. We're walking through the clinical evidence on 4 foods that each work through a completely different biological pathway. And by the end, you'll have a practical protocol you can start this week. Let's start with the problem, because if you're over 50, this is already your problem, whether you feel it or not. The prostate gland is roughly the size of a walnut in your 20s. By your 50s, it's often closer to a golf ball. We call this benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH, and roughly half of men between 51 and 60 have it. By 70, that's 80%. Then there's prostate cancer, the second most common cancer in men globally, with 1 in 8 men receiving a diagnosis in their lifetime. The tricky part? Prostate issues develop silently. You might not notice anything until you're waking up 3 times a night. By then, the inflammation has usually been building for years. Here's what I want you to understand. You are not a passive bystander. The foods you eat directly influence the inflammatory environment around your prostate, your PSA trajectory, and your cellular risk. The research on this is compelling and surprisingly specific. Food number 1 is tomatoes, but with a caveat most people get completely wrong. Raw tomatoes are fine, but cooked tomatoes are dramatically better for your prostate. The active compound is lycopene, a carotenoid that concentrates in prostate tissue at higher levels than almost anywhere else in the body. Your prostate essentially hoards this stuff, and cooking tomatoes in olive oil breaks down the cell walls, converting lycopene into a form that's roughly 2 to 3 times more bioavailable. The Harvard Health Professionals follow-up study found that men eating 2 or more servings of tomato sauce per week had a 23% lower risk of prostate cancer overall, and a 35% lower risk of cancers that had spread beyond the prostate. The mechanism is well established. Lycopene quenches reactive oxygen species and inhibits prostate cancer cell proliferation. So, 2 to 3 servings of cooked tomato per week. Tomato sauce, passata, roasted tomatoes in olive oil. A simple marinara counts. Canned tomatoes are excellent. Don't overthink it. Number 2, fish. The Gospels are saturated with it. Jesus fed thousands with fish. His first disciples were fishermen on the Sea of Galilee, catching sardines, tilapia, and carp. Exactly the oily omega-3 rich species we now know are critical for brain health. A 2025 meta-analysis of 58 studies found that around 2,000 milligrams per day of omega-3 DHA and EPA was associated with significant improvements in attention, processing speed, and language. Roughly 2 or 3 servings of oily fish per week, and prospective data links higher fish consumption to a 30 to 50% lower risk of dementia. DHA is literally a structural component of your brain. After 50, your brain naturally starts losing tissue volume. Omega-3s from fish are one of the most evidence-backed tools to slow that process. Salmon, sardines, or mackerel, twice a week, minimum. Food number 3 is pomegranate. And I'll be honest about the evidence because it's more nuanced than most health content admits. There's a landmark Phase 2 trial from UCLA, published in Clinical Cancer Research in 2006 by Dr. Alan Pantuck. 50 men with rising PSA after surgery or radiation drank 8 ounces of pomegranate juice daily. The mean PSA doubling time went from 15 months at baseline to 54 months post-treatment. More than 80% of participants showed improvement. The mechanism centers on polyphenols called punicalagins, among the most potent antioxidants found in any food. Punicalagins directly inhibit NF-κB, the master regulator of inflammatory signaling in prostate tissue, and have demonstrated anti-proliferative effects on prostate cancer cells in laboratory studies. Now the honest caveat: a later Phase 3 placebo-controlled trial from 2015 did not show statistically significant results. The science is genuinely contested. What we can say, the mechanism is plausible. The early trial findings were striking, and pomegranate's broader anti-inflammatory properties are well supported. Practical options: whole seeds for the fiber benefit, juice in moderation, around 40 grams of sugar per cup, or an extract if you want to avoid the sugar load, 3 to 4 times a week. Number 5. High-dose vitamin A. Not beta-carotene this time. I mean preformed vitamin A or retinol. This is the form found in liver, animal products, and a huge number of multivitamins. The recommended daily amount is about 900 micrograms for men, 700 for women. The problem is that many popular supplements contain 3,000 to 10,000 IU or more, sitting well above the 4,500 IU threshold, where the research starts to get concerning. Here's what the evidence shows. Adults consuming more than 40,500 IU per day over time have a measurably higher risk of bone mineral density loss, and the data on hip fractures in older populations is particularly worrying. Your bones actually become more brittle, exactly the opposite of what most people are trying to achieve. At higher doses, above 10,000 micrograms per day long-term, the liver takes damage. We're talking fatty liver progressing toward fibrosis. Now, unlike the other supplements on this list, the risk here is dose-dependent and reversible in most cases. Stop supplementing. The problem typically resolves. But if you've been taking a high-dose retinol supplement for years, it's worth asking your doctor to check your liver enzymes and bone density. The irony is that vitamin A toxicity, hair loss, dry, scaly skin, aching joints, is often mistaken for aging itself. Food number 4 is fatty fish, sardines, salmon, and mackerel, and this one works through the omega-3 inflammation pathway. Chronic inflammation in prostate tissue drives both the abnormal cell growth of BPH and the environment that allows cancer to develop. The problem is that most Western diets run omega-6 to omega-3 ratios of 15 or 20 to 1. EPA and DHA from fatty fish compete directly with arachidonic acid in the inflammatory cascade, reducing the prostaglandins and leukotrienes that drive prostate inflammation. A study published in Inflammopharmacology found that adding omega-3 fatty acids to standard BPH treatment produced statistically significant improvements in IPSS symptom scores at 1 month compared to standard treatment alone. 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week. Sardines are honestly the best option. Highest omega-3 per serving, lowest mercury, cheapest price. Canned sardines in olive oil take about 90 seconds to prepare. Salmon is widely available. Mackerel is underrated and extremely rich in EPA and DHA. One note on supplements. The evidence consistently favors whole fish over isolated fish oil. The full food matrix, including vitamin D and selenium, appears to matter. If you genuinely won't eat fish, a high-quality concentrated omega-3 supplement is a reasonable fallback. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. The part most prostate health content never reaches. Each food works through a distinct mechanism. Lycopene concentrates in prostate tissue and neutralizes oxidative damage. Sulforaphane activates NRF2, your cellular defense master switch. Pomegranate's punicalagins reduce NF-κB inflammatory signaling, and omega-3s rebalance